You must let me withdraw, your grace. No one will want a ruined woman, and I will not have your aunt's kindness pay for it. She does not know what she has invited into her house." Nathaniel Ashe, 7th Duke of Prestbury, crossed the library, took the hand she had pressed against her mouth, and kissed it. Miss Amabel Thorne stopped crying out of pure astonishment. "Sit down," Nathaniel said. "There is a chair behind you. Sit down and drink that, and then tell me who has said the word ruin to you and how often, and I shall be perfectly quiet until you have finished." She sat, because her knees had evidently made the decision for her. She did not drink the wine. She was small and dark and shabbily neat, in a black gown that had been dyed rather than bought, and there was a traveling bag at her feet that had come the whole 11 miles from Culvert with her. "You should not have done that," she said. "Kissed your hand. It is the least significant thing I have ever done." "You do not know what I am accused of." "I know precisely what you are accused of," said Nathaniel. "Mrs. Sedge of Culvert House wrote to my aunt 11 days ago, unasked, in 3 closely written sheets, in order to prevent your engagement here. I have read it. My aunt has read it. She read it aloud at breakfast in a voice I shall remember with pleasure for the rest of my life, and at the end of it she said that she had never in 60 years known a woman go to that much trouble over a companion she was glad to see the back of." He sat down on the edge of the desk, which put him lower than her, and folded his arms. "So, Miss Thorne, you are said to have been discovered in the upper passage at Culvert House at 4 in the morning in the month of March, insufficiently dressed, having been, the phrase is Mrs. Sedge's, where no honest young woman had business to be. You have never denied it. You gave no explanation to the household, you refused a character, and you walked out of that house with 1 bag. That is the whole of the case, and it is the refusal to explain that has hanged you, because people forgive an accident and never a silence." Amabel Thorne's face had gone perfectly white. "You have read it, and your aunt has read it," she said, "and yet you sent the carriage for me on Tuesday." "I did." "Why?" "Because I have been a magistrate for 11 years, Nathaniel said, "and in 11 years I have learned exactly one useful thing, which is this. An innocent woman with something to hide behaves precisely like a guilty one, and the difference is never in the story. It is in what she declines to gain by it." He tilted his head. "You were in that passage at 4 in the morning with your gown torn. Mrs. Sedge says so herself, in the 3rd sheet, and she does not appear to notice what she has written. A young woman about her own wicked business does not tear her own gown. And a young woman who has been wronged, and who could clear herself in 1 sentence by naming the man, and who does not, is protecting somebody. Not herself. She has already lost somebody else." The clock on the chimney-piece went on with its work. Amabel sat with both hands closed on the arms of the chair, and looked at him as though he had spoken in a language she had given up hoping to hear. "I cannot tell you," she said at last. "I know. You do not understand if I say 1 word of it, if I name anybody at all. There is a girl in that house who will be turned off within the hour, and she has a mother at Ellerby who is dying and who is kept alive on £8 a year and what that girl can send. £8. Her voice cracked straight across. "I have £40 and no character. She has £8 and a mother. It was not a difficult sum, your grace. I did it in the passage at 4 in the morning while I was still shaking, and I have not changed the answer since." Nathaniel Ashe sat very still. "No," he said, "it is not a difficult sum. It is only that most people cannot do arithmetic when they are frightened, and you did it standing up in the dark with your gown torn." He rose. "Miss Thorne, I am going to ask you for nothing. Not the name, not the room, not the hour. You will stay in this house as my aunt's companion at £50 a year, and you will not be asked 1 question about Culvert by anybody under this roof. and if you are asked one by anybody outside it, you will refer them to me, and I shall enjoy the conversation very much. You cannot your name. My name, said the 7th Duke of Prestbury, has survived a grandfather who lost an abbey at cards and an uncle who married an opera dancer twice, the second time in Naples for the novelty. It will survive a companion whom a vicious woman in Yorkshire dislikes. He crossed to the bell and stopped with his hand on it. One thing, and then I shall let you go up. Will you tell me the girl's name? Not the man's, the girl's. Amabel hesitated a long time. Anne Fawcett, she said. She unlocked the back stair for me. That is all she did, and it is a dismissible offense in that house. Thank you, said Nathaniel, and rang, and thought about Ellerby, and about £8 a year, and said nothing else at all. She had been at Prestbury Hall 6 weeks before he admitted to himself what was happening to him. His aunt Lady Ordish, who was 79, and had never in her life pretended not to notice anything, put it to him over the chessboard in June. You come to my sitting room now. I have always come to your sitting room. Twice a year, Nathaniel, to be dutiful and to ask after my chest. The old woman moved a bishop with a click. You have come 31 times since April. You sit in the window and you let Amabel read the newspapers to me, and you correct her Greek, which she likes, and you have twice contrived to be in the Rose Walk at 11 o'clock, which is when she takes my dog out, and I have watched the whole performance from this window with enormous enjoyment. Aunt, she thinks you are being charitable, said Lady Ordish. That is the difficulty, my dear. Every kindness you do her, she enters in a ledger on the side marked debt, because she has been taught this last year that she is a woman to whom things are done. You will have to be extremely plain with her, and it will frighten her, and you must do it anyway. Nathaniel looked at the board and did not see it. There is something I must do first, he said. What he did took 11 weeks, and he did it without asking Amabel Thorne a single question, exactly as he had promised. He began at Ellerby, where a woman named Mrs. Fawcett lay dying in a 2-roomed cottage, and was, by the end of July, dying in a dry one with coal in the grate, and a woman from the parish coming in twice a day. Arranged through the Prestbury charity, and entered in the books as a tenant's relief, which was true, since Nathaniel had by then bought the cottage. Then he waited, because the one thing he would not do was buy Anne Fawcett's testimony. A magistrate learns what a purchased witness is worth. Mrs. Fawcett died in September, warm, with her daughter beside her, having had 6 weeks nobody had expected. And in the first week of October, Anne Fawcett gave notice at Culvert House of her own accord, walked 11 miles to Prestbury, asked to see the Duke, and stood in front of his desk with her hands twisted in her apron. She never told you, did she? Said Anne. Miss Thorne, she never said a word. Not one. I've come to say it then, sir, your grace. The girl's chin was trembling and she pushed it out anyway. It were Mr. Julian Sedge, the son. He come to her room and she got out past him, and I had the back stair key and I turned it for her, and Mrs. Sedge come along the passage with a candle and found her on the landing with her gown tore, and Mr. Julian stood right there in his shirt sleeves and said as she'd come to him. Anne was weeping openly now. And Miss Thorne looked at me across that passage. I were behind the door, sir. They never knew I were there, and she shook her head at me. She shook her head, telling me to hold my tongue, and I held it, and I have hated myself every day of 8 months, and mother's gone now, and there is nothing they can do to me. Nathaniel Ashe sat quite still, until he was certain of his voice. Will you swear it before 2 magistrates? I'll swear it before the king. He did not make a spectacle of it. That was Amabel's doing. He had wanted a spectacle very much, and she would not have one. No, she said when he told her, in the library where she had wept in March, with the affidavit on the desk between them. No public reading, no letters to the county. Anne has sworn it, and it is written down, and it exists, and that is what I want, that it exists. I do not want to spend the rest of my life as the woman that dreadful thing happened to. They may say what they like about me. I know what I did in that passage, and now 3 people know, and that is enough to be going on with. Julian Sedge is at this moment engaged to a girl of 19. Amabel's hands closed. Then that, she said, may be spoken of, not for me, for her. So it was done that way, quietly, to 2 families, through a solicitor, with the sworn paper enclosed and a covering letter from the Duke of Prestbury in his own hand. The engagement was broken in a fortnight. Mrs. Sedge wrote 9 sheets to Lady Ordish, who did not open them. Julian Sedge went to a cousin's plantation in the spring, and the county drew its own conclusions, as the county always does when a young man is suddenly sent to the tropics. Nathaniel had meant to speak to Amabel that week, and did not, and then meant to speak in November, and did not. And it was the 3rd week of Advent before Lady Ordish lost patience and told him at dinner, in front of 2 footmen, that if he did not do it before Christmas, she would do it for him and make a poor job of it deliberately. He found Amabel in the long gallery, putting holly along the picture rail, standing on a chair she had no business standing on. "Get down from there. I am nearly finished. Miss Thorne, I am about to make you an offer of marriage, and I decline to do it while you are 3 feet in the air with a handful of holly." Amabel Thorne got down from the chair very slowly, and set the holly on the sill, and turned round with the whole of her face gone still. "That is not funny," she said. "It was not intended to be." "Your Grace." "Nathaniel." "You cannot." Her voice was rising, and she brought it down again with visible effort. "Sir, be sensible. Whatever paper is in your desk, in this county I am the companion who was turned out of Culvert House. Half of them have never heard the rest and never will, because nobody repeats an acquittal. There is no pleasure in it. You are the Duke of Prestbury. You will be pitied, and I shall be the reason." She pressed her hands together. "And you have been so good to me that I cannot even be angry at you properly, which is the cruelest thing about it. I owe you everything. You bought Anne's mother a cottage. Do you imagine I did not find that out? You owe me nothing at all, and I am about to prove it." Nathaniel came and stood in front of her, close enough to be heard, not close enough to crowd her. "Amabel, every single thing I have done since March, I did because it was owed to you by that house, by that woman, by the whole apparatus of respectable people who require a young woman to have no enemies in order to be believed. Paying a debt does not create one. If you take 1 shilling of gratitude out of this conversation, I shall consider the entire business a failure. Here is what is mine. On the day you came here you were finished, and you knew it, and you had walked 11 miles to withdraw an application, so that an old woman's kindness should not be wasted on you. That was the first thing you ever did in my hearing, and I have not been able to think clearly since." His voice roughened. "You stood in a dark passage with your gown torn and did a sum, and the answer you got was £8 and a mother, and you paid it out of your own name, and you never once, in 8 months in this house, mentioned it to gain anything by it. Not to me, not to my aunt, not on the evening when Lady Brassey was uncivil to you at our own table, and you let it pass. I am 40 days short of 41 years old. I have been offered a great many admirable young women. Not one of them has ever done anything at a cost. I did not know that was what I was waiting for until I saw it." He held out his hand, open, palm up, and left it there. "I am not rescuing you. You were not rescued. You refused every rescue I offered and dictated your own terms, and I obeyed them. I am asking you to marry me because I would rather be married to the woman who shook her head across that passage than to anybody else living. And because I have loved you since about the second week of April, and because a man of my rank has exactly one privilege worth having, amiable, and it is that he may choose, and be damned to the county, and I intend to use it once. She looked at his open hand for a long moment. You said damned, she whispered. I did, it is Advent, I shall answer for it. An amiable thorn laughed and broke, and put both her hands into his, and Nathaniel Ashe drew her in and bent his head and kissed her, and thought, distantly, that he had begun this in a library in March with a hand kissed in the wrong order, and that it had taken him 9 months to get the sequence right. They were married in February at Prestbury, and the church was uncomfortably full, because a duke's wedding is a duke's wedding, whatever anybody has said at a card table. Lady Ordish wept and claimed the credit and was allowed it. Anne Fawcett came up the aisle behind the bride as her maid, in a new grey pelisse, and was afterwards housekeeper at Prestbury for 22 years, and terrifying to everyone. The county came round, in the slow, grudging way of counties, and the mechanism of its coming round was simple, and, Nathaniel thought, entirely characteristic of his wife. She made the Prestbury charity a real thing instead of a Christmas list. Within 5 years, there was a fund at Ellerby for the mothers of servant girls, administered by the Duchess in person, on the principle stated once, in a letter to a bishop, in words the bishop quoted for years afterwards, that a woman should never be obliged to choose between her honor and her mother's coal. Nathaniel read that letter over her shoulder before it went, and put his hand on the back of her neck, and said nothing. Long afterwards, at the wedding of their eldest daughter, an elderly cousin remarked to the Duke of Prestbury that her grace had come from nowhere at all, and had it not been a great risk. Nathaniel looked down the church at his wife. She came into my library 11 miles on foot to warn me against herself, he said. There has never been a safer investment in the history of England.